Oops, sorry. I think I forgot to push the button. Anyway, is this working? Let's see. Okay, I think we're live. Buenos dias. Enjoy your coffee. Okay, I am. There's our audio. I am running late this morning, so I'm going to jump into it. Lots going on. Good morning, good evening, Mo. Buenas noches. So, send some questions or comments on Twitter, YouTube, or Twitch. And yeah, let's see what happens. And this is a fantastic diagram by a Twitter account called Defense Charts. And if you want to have some good laughs, check it out. They uh, post these PowerPoint slides and diagrams, apparently mostly from the US military or US defense complex. And these are just absurd. I mean, they're the craziest diagrams you've ever seen. Like, what is trying to be conveyed in this? The cyber domain, and it's just no rhyme or reason. It's just all these interlocking pieces. It's pretty funny. And they attempt to have different axes, weather and climate, electromagnetic, time, neutral, friendly. Like, so it's pretty funny. Okay, so the weekend. So you may have heard we had a little bit of a fire in Southern California the last week or so. And this is a photo, I believe, of a house out at Malibu. And if you've ever driven down PCH along the coast, past the houses on Malibu, there are these houses literally on the cliff on the edge of the beach. So there's the hill, a road, the house, and the beach. And that's it. Somehow the fire swept all the way down the hill, across the road, and took these houses out like they were just cardboard boxes. And you may notice in the photo, I don't know if you can see my mouse there, I saw several photos where the steel I-beams in some of these large, fancy homes were just melted like, plastic straws. So that got me kind of thinking that I may need to do some geographically distributed backups of various things. My data is kind of backed up to the cloud, more or less. There's stuff I'm okay with in the cloud. There's stuff I don't want in the cloud. There's a lot of stuff that I can just grab a new laptop and I'm fine. But there are certain documents, like your passports and birth certificates and all that stuff, and certain other documents that I want to try to distribute geographically. And how do you do that? So I'm working on that. And I have some, let's say there's encryption keys for encrypted backups. There's a way to do multi-key geographically distributed backups of those. So I'm just playing with that. So that was interesting. And I need to resurrect a go bag for the family, if you're familiar with that term. I used to have one, haven't needed one since we lived here. So just kind of, it gets neglected. So need to resurrect the go bag because, yeah, there were people who 9 p.m. realized they had to evacuate their neighborhood. So if you're into disaster recovery, disaster prep, contingency planning for your business and IT, one of many lessons, very real. And weekly projects. We continue to learn BC support tickets. Very interesting. The variety of topics that come through for Business Central support are all over the map. We're starting to see a few themes, but really, essentially every single topic is new, so we're learning that. We are continuing the development of our internal subscription management dashboard for our AppSource apps. We chose to not rely upon any third party service for payment management, subscription management, customer portal, anything. We speculated about the risks, and others who attempted to use those dashboards, I forget the names of them, they encountered issues fairly quickly. In less than a year, they had to migrate to a different platform. And then the new platform had other issues. So when you're relying upon third parties for the critical business processes, um, yeah, you got to be careful. So we chose to develop our own from scratch, all our licensing, subscription, everything we built in house. And we're going to have a subscription management dashboard that we're building in house as well. So we will not be reliant upon anyone for that portion of our business. And I worked with Ronald this week to try to just do some basic Power Automate exercises. And like, how hard could it be, right? Uh, we couldn't figure it out. Now, I have since figured out one of them, but another one, reading data from a CSV file, I would have thought there's just some CSV file connector, and there's something in Power Automate. It's like read into a CSV table. I thought you just pointed at a file and there you go. As far as we could tell, there is no such connector or adapter or operation. You pretty much have to read a CSV file, count header rows or whatever you need, get field names, do ordinal references to fields, and extract everything and loop through the file manually. Let me know if I'm missing anything, but I looked at multiple articles, and there's even a guy who recently in 2024 wrote a C# connector add-in or something that he sells that attempts to solve this problem. And I'm just kind of baffled that by now Power Automate does not have a connector, which is a theme you'll see later. But like, I was just stumped. Like, you're kidding me. You can't just magically read a CSV file, have it adjusted to a table, loop through, read the data, and go on your merry way. You apparently have to write every single, field extraction, row extraction loop, and you're just doing it manually as if it's kind of like pseudocode for, say, .NET. Surprising. Now, I was since able to figure out how to read an Excel file, but you still have the limitation of I believe it needs a data table in the Excel file. I believe that is still a requirement for that, which is a little tricky for, say, let's say you wait a call with a customer, they download an Excel file from ADP. Well, I don't think that Excel file from ADP is going to have a defined data table. So the user would have to do that every single time. And it seems to be UPS battery season. So I'm going to have to replace multiple UPS batteries, it seems, after one failed last week. Okay, what do we got going on here? Really interesting lesson on Business Central tooltips. Steve, that's got to be so boring. Why would you talk about Business Central tooltips? I would normally agree with you. When is the last time you actually hovered over fields and read the tooltip? I do it occasionally for a field I don't know what it is, like some European tax registration number. Like, okay, can we use this field? What's it used for? Well, we had a customer who says, hey, we want to use the average collection period in days field. So you see it there. It's the second from the bottom, average collection period. And they are very sensitive to their collections. Gee, this is going to be fun. They're very sensitive to collections, cash receipts. They're constantly having to be on top of it due to their industry. And so they monitor this number like crazy. And so when they migrated from Dynamics GP to Business Central, this is something they wanted. It's great. They monitor it here. And they also wanted it in the customer API. So when they download current list of customers for some other system, their collection management or cash management system, they wanted this field in the API payload. So we said, great, added this field to the API payload. Been working great. Then we had a call a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, and they said, yeah, by the way, we noticed this field no longer works. It's returning things like 1, 2, 3, 0, like random numbers. It's like it broke. And they explained it used to work just fine, but now it doesn't work. So I get on the call with my developer and we're like, okay. So while he's looking at the code for this average collection period, I'm looking at the page, the Business Central page, and I'm going through customers on the customer's Business Central tenant. They're all zero except for one. It said 1.5. And I'm like, there's no values. What's going on here? Well, after figuring out the problem via the code, we found the reason why this happens. It turns out I just happened to hover over the tooltip, and it would have saved us a solid 30 plus minutes. Because what does this say? This specifies how long the customer typically takes to pay invoices, drumroll please, in the current fiscal year. Think about that. In the current fiscal year. So why did this value stop working recently? Well, there's this little holiday that comes around once a year. It's called January 1st, New Year. And it turns out that once January 1st rolls around, this calculation goes to zero for every single customer. You lose the average collection period for all customers. It's as if they're brand new customers and they've been paying perfectly since day one. This is a story, I think, of a developer who has never actually interacted with a finance department or never actually implemented an ERP system. I am sorry. What possible rationale could there be to reset this for the current fiscal year? Now, I am 100% on board if you want to say, hey, it's a rolling average of the last 12 months. I get it. You've got my vote on that. No problem. And, if the customer says, well, we need 24 months, okay, like, fine. You can have that argument that 12 months or whatever is the cutoff. But to arbitrarily reset this on January 1st, now, I haven't dug into it to see if it is truly the fiscal year or if it is just the calendar year. I need to check. But in this case, this customer's value is set to zero as of January 1st. This number became useless. So lesson number one is check out tooltips occasionally. You will be shocked the information that you realize or that you have there. The second thing is, I'm sure you all have seen this. This is a developer who just has not been let out of the closet to talk to actual customers. Or this is a junior dev, but I mean, clearly it was intentionally designed, apparently, current fiscal year. Like someone made that choice. And it is shocking how bad that choice was, in my humble opinion. I could be wrong. Happy to hear counterpoints, but like, let's say your fiscal year is June 1st. Why would you wipe all this calculation out as of June 1st? Makes no sense. So that was fun. So we need to explain that to the customer. We need to see if they want a custom corrected version in the API payload. I'm assuming they do. And we need to ask them if they want us to fix this calculation so that it actually works. And moving on to Tuesday, Martes, laptop durability update. So a bit of not an apology, but kind of a reality check that I have been purchasing used laptops off of eBay for several years now. My family is still using a whole fleet of them, work perfectly fine. They don't need much. They mostly browse the web. And they've been great. Very, very minor issues, but like no issues. Well, the last, I don't know, 6 to 12 months, there have been a few issues. One was the CPU fan on one, the bearings went bad. So I sent it back and the seller repaired it, sent it back to me. So I gave him the choice. So you can refund me with this perfectly fine laptop. If you want to repair it, happy to get it back. So they handled that, went well. Since then, I just got a T14 or T14S, one of them, with a bad track point. Now, I know a lot of people don't use the little red nub track point. I do. So as soon as I turned it on, it only moved horizontally. It did not move vertically. Okay, great. Pack it up, send it back. And then I had tested another one. I thought it worked fine. But then while about to set it up to use it, I went to plug it in and I noticed that the power light wasn't on, or it would turn on then off. I just happened to notice that. This is 2 weeks after I thought it was fine. Turns out it has a bad USB port, USB-C port, which is the main charging port on the system board. So got a return request set up and just mailed that back this week. So far I've had 3 essentially full returns. In addition to that, I've had 2 that I purchased that were still under extended warranty. Those are the X1 Carbon Gen 9s. And one had an issue with one of the PowerPoints. I knew that, but I was able to reset it and it started to work. Well, it promptly died. So that apparently is a known issue with those system boards. And then we had a second one that died completely. I've had both of those repaired through Lenovo factory repair, and they had system board replacements. And then, totally unrelated to the eBay ThinkPad thing, a friend's MacBook Pro had massive corrosion and fried and died. Wouldn't boot up, wouldn't charge. So I sent that off to a service for them. And guess how much? I gave you a preview previously. The total balance, including shipping, return shipping, is $776. So if you use a MacBook, whoa Nelly, just be aware the system storage, instead of a hard drive, no M.2 SSD. My understanding is all MacBooks have the storage chips soldered on the system board. So there are some benefits of that, but when it comes to longevity, when it comes to transferring your data, when it comes to system board issues, you are up the creek. You have no ability to extract that data if the system board has any type of issue. You can send it off to third-party repair services like this. This was a higher end MacBook, so this would be on the higher end of the repair. So you're basically looking at $500, $800 typically. This included a battery replacement as well. If you try to send it to Apple, I don't believe they'll do data recovery. So I think you just lose your data and they'll charge you full retail price for a system board. The system board for this one, I believe, is over $1,500. So if you use a Mac, you'd better be backing your data, backing up your data off of that machine. No bueno. So software aging. And I know this is a tired meme, but it's just so appropriate. And yes, I think I still have an eternal cold. So I'm sure you've seen it, but I probably meant to hide this image, but I have a 2007 Volkswagen for my daughter, older car. Fine, it has older car problems. So one of the turn indicator bulbs died. And the car actually tells you, which is fancy from where I come from, because I've never had that in a car. So it says, hey, your turn indicator on the right side or left side is out. So my daughter watched a few videos, pulls a bulb, and the bulb looks fine. The filament's not broken. So I'm like, that's really strange. So I tell her to swap bulbs left and right. Sure enough, she swaps it. The other bulb's fine. When she relocates this bulb, still doesn't work. So we're like, okay, what's going on? So I pull the bulb from the socket and I notice there's some scorch marks on the pins. And then, I don't know if you can see it, the pin here is actually melted. So there was a short here or a gap and it sparked or overheated, melted the socket of the bulb, which in turn scorched the pin on the socket. So I'm able to buy these bulbs for $5 for a pair from Amazon. They're very common, but it turns out that the bulb socket for this car, this Volkswagen, is apparently very unique and very difficult to get. Went to the dealer here in Los Angeles. You'd think they'd have it. Nope. So there are a few hanging out around the country, but I have to order them. The socket alone is $40 for a light bulb socket. Now, maybe that's the normal price and that's no big deal, but if the socket is $40, I can't imagine what the other stuff on the car is going to cost, like the batteries, the 2 batteries that cost $300 each that I've had to replace. So, lesson with old cars and old software is you start to run into problems, such as you know, I support hundreds of Dynamic GP customers, and although they have a version 18.7 that was recently released, and they are doing minor updates through 2029, I believe, now pushed to December 31st, 2029. There are neglected areas of the software. So that's the lesson. When software ages, it may get support, but as the meme indicates, it gets support in some areas, but existing bugs get neglected. And it can be very frustrating. And not to pick on this one, but the chance of this being changed, corrected, or getting anyone's attention to perhaps fix this, what I think it should be fixed, like this should not be current fiscal year. It should be last 12 months or the last calendar year, whatever you want to do, but don't reset as of January 1. I'm going to guess I could submit this idea as chances zero that this is going to get any attention. It's literally one line of code. It's saying current year. That's it. Easy to fix, but why? Because everything is now Copilot or AI or fancy dashboards or whatever. There's just some new hot thing on the market, and that gets the attention, and the bugs don't get fixed, or the poorly designed features. And I already see a mistake on my next slide. Let me animations. Okay, so last week I mentioned that I shut down the port for my VPN. So my VPN appliance is now sitting here, useless. I can't connect to it because I shut down the port because it was getting flooded with attacks. And in case it is unclear why, in addition to the numerous zero-day vulnerabilities in every VPN appliance that has occurred in the last few years, this is another reason why to disable your VPN. So there are cybercrime organizations, as they're called, or cybercrime gangs, ransomware gangs, and it is very much an industry. And it's not some team tries to figure out how to break into this company and how to exploit things and then get your data and ransom it. This is an entire economy where there are people whose sole purpose and for their job is to get access to the corporate network, and that is it. Then they stop. These are called initial access brokers. So this is an example, Professor Click. This person has somehow obtained access to a German grocery retailer with over 2,000 employees, $700 million in revenue, and they have gained access to a Palo Alto. It is the Global Protect VPN. If you're not familiar with Global Protect, it's a pretty fancy VPN service that is used by large enterprises. And I know people who use it say, yeah, we're protected by Global Protect. We're fine. No security risk. Well, here you go. It doesn't look like it's a 0-day. It looks like it's a phishing or some other exploit that got a single user's domain user's access. So this person it's like an eBay auction. Start at $1,000, $200 bid increments, and then they have what's called the blitz. That's buy it now, just like eBay. For $1,600, you can have access to this VPN network in order to try to exploit the network and get access to this company. And it's available for 24 hours. So that is yet another reason why I disabled my VPN. And Wednesday, miércoles. Yes, that's when I received the replacement battery from B&H Photo. And very nicely, they have a nice feature on their website when you try to buy a product, they will tell you about a used item that is available for sale. So I went to buy this and it was like $100, I don't know, $290, whatever the price was, $190. And it told me that they had an open box version for $50 off. Yes, please. Because it's B&H, happy to take their used open box. It's really an open box version of this battery. Normally, I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't buy used on eBay. But it was brand new. It had the date on there. Seems fine. So plugged it in, swapped that on Wednesday. While swapping out that battery, I saw on a second UPS, smaller UPS, that the battery replacement indicator is flashing. So I haven't replaced those two batteries since 2022 either. So I accidentally got in the cycle of replacing all the batteries at once, which is both a good thing and a bad thing because now they're all needed to be replaced at the same time. So I have 3 other UPS batteries, perhaps 4 I need to replace. Good times. And also on Wednesday, anyone else having this issue, something is going on with Microsoft authentication. And I don't know if it's just, the token is expiring or if it's just an OAuth rotation, but I am getting logged out of all of my Microsoft apps and accounts, and apps are going haywire. And Teams, I tried to capture the others, but I couldn't find the files. Everything is saying you need to re-authenticate. And then it's sneakily trying to associate that account with my Windows login, being helpful. But I use multiple Microsoft accounts. So, absolute nightmare for me is having my desktop, my PC, my laptop associated with any one of my accounts, because then that Microsoft 365, whatever Azure login is fighting with my laptop login and then is fighting with my multiple other Microsoft logins that I use in Teams, in Office, in OneDrive, in web browsers, you name it. Absolute nightmare. It's like the Achilles heel of Microsoft services is their very frustrating account structure and design. So Teams, I had to re-log into 3 different accounts, had to re-log into Office multiple times. Like, is it just me? It's crazy. Now, maybe if you don't use multiple accounts, you won't have this issue, but boy, it was brutal. We continued work on the subscription management dashboard, and I had a presentation in Germany a couple years ago at Directions EMEA with Christian. Sorry, I forgot Christian's last name. And we talked about agile software development. And this is a methodology, it's kind of a philosophy about software development. It's kind of the antithesis of waterfall. And we wondered whether it was viable in the BC space. Well, internally at least, we very much are using Agile. We do not write up a 20-page spec. We talk about a certain feature set, we develop it, we realize what we're missing, we iterate, we refactor, we develop new features. And that was very much a discussion on Wednesday where we were reviewing the first prototype of this subscription management app. And I realized I had totally forgotten a critical requirement that we had. We had talked about a design, talked through the mechanics, had a mock up of the screen, but then I realized I forgot that we have multiple customer categories and we need to account for that. So we need to refactor. And also in the process, we realized that when customers subscribe using to our apps, we need to account for certain things like what if they have production in 3 sandboxes and they have 5 apps? That would be potentially, 20 different registration records. How do we deal with that mess when they're mostly sandboxes? So all sorts of things came up, and those conversations really only came up when we're working through the prototype or proof of concept, the V1 beta. And, I could have written documents all day. I could have done waterfall estimates and project planning documents all day. Could have spent hours of time on design, and maybe I would have caught a few of those. I probably would not have caught several. And yeah, you can do change requests and all that, but we're finding internally the agile development methodology is working quite well. We're just like, hey, we build it, we iterate, we find what we're missing, we refactor, we fix it. It's working great for us. Now, doesn't always work for customers, as Christian and I discussed in EMEA, because customers say how much it's going to cost and when am I going to get it. Very hard to accomplish those things with agile development. And próximos eventos. I saw a joke today. It was really bad. So if you're ready, why did the hipster burn his tongue? Because he drank his coffee before it was cool. So upcoming events. We have Directions NA coming up in Las Vegas, April 7th through 9th. Go over and register. I believe it is still early bird registration for roughly $1,500, and that goes up, I think, next week. And more on Directions NA because the request for proposals is still technically open until tonight. Color Cloud, April 24th and 5th in Hamburg. DynamicsCon, May 13th through 16th in Chicago, dynamicscon.com. And Dynamics Minds coming up in May in Slovenia. So we have a full slate for the spring, 4 conferences there. So go check them out if they're in your area. And we have the Summit NA Roadshows, February and April. Head on over to dynamicscommunities.com and absolutely make sure to double check the dates. I've seen at least a few of the meeting dates change with less than a month in advance notice. So definitely double check the dates and register and stay up on any date changes. And Thursday, Jueves, had a quick call or had a quick discussion about a support ticket of how to print the IRS Form 1096. And in this particular case, the customer uses binary stream. So we reviewed the support ticket, which involved binary stream support. And they had a really nice KB article on how to print the IRS 1096 form. So hats off to binary stream support. Really great article, step-by-step instructions, nice screenshots, explanation of all the options. So we reviewed that. I don't know that I've ever printed a 1096 in my entire life. Maybe I have 15 years ago and just forgot, but not something I normally do. And apparently this is the printed form. This is not the electronic form. So that was interesting. So yeah, MEM does have a dedicated IRS 1096 form that allows you to print by entity, multiple entities, merged entities, all entities. So kind of nice feature, and must have been fun having to deal with that. So then on Thursday, I wrote up 3 session submissions for Directions NA. I got those submitted into Sessionize. Head on over to directionsna.com if you are interested. Click on Request for Proposals and submit that through Sessionize. You have until tonight, I believe midnight tonight. I don't know what time zone. And then while working with Ronald, we've been working with Power Automate. And one of the most frustrating things we're seeing that's just like one of those background annoyances is when you search for connectors or actions, we'll search for something and 1,000 things will show up in the results. And we're just like, why is this so hard to find things? For example, we typed Business Central, and the first thing that comes up is Excel Online, and then some AI thing, and you got to scroll down a page to get to Business Central connectors for some reason. Very strange. So I tweeted about this like, okay, apparently Power Automate doesn't know how to sort because we're just seeing random, all sorts of messy results when we try to search for other things. Well, thanks to the help of Yoon Chu, who I don't know how he figured this out. If you mistype the word business and you have only one S, that will instantly bring up the Dynamics 365 Business Central connector. So it wasn't a searching issue per se. At least in this case, it was that the behind the scenes search keywords being tagged to the Business Central connectors have the word business with one S. Now that we know that, we can find it very easily. But when typing Business Central or the word business, you really have to scroll to find the Business Central connector. So that was fun. So I've given that feedback to some people to see if we can get that fixed. And welcome to Friday, Viernes. And the week flew by, the weekend flew by. Then I woke up and it was Monday. I was like, here we go again. And now it's Friday again. It flew. So yeah, don't blink or you'll miss it. So it was a very, very busy week. So obviously, welcome, good morning. I need coffee. And immediately after this, I have a call, and then I have to go back to the car dealer to get my car fixed again because they said, you really need an alignment. It's like, fine, it's been a few years. They give me an alignment. Now my car won't drive straight. Genius, right? Like, why am I having to keep the steering wheel left to go straight? If I straighten the steering wheel, I go veering off the side of the road. Absolute genius. So I've been driving with that for a couple days now. got to take it back. It's going to take another day for them to get to it. And hopefully they have someone who is conscious, who does the alignment sometime. So finding competent people is challenging in all industries. And as I mentioned, Directions NA call for speakers ends this evening. So if you have an idea, if you want to come to Las Vegas in April, head on over to sessionize.com/directionsNA 2025. And that is the week. Moving on to the excellence update. I have some fantastic news. This is really awesome. As I mentioned before, in El Salvador, in Berlin, El Salvador, a town, small town of 18,000 people, literally on the side of a volcano, I have been offering what we call the E4CC English Academy Scholarship. And E4CC is a private company that teaches English for call centers for the Salvadoran call center industry. And they have an intensive English Academy program where the most intensive is every single day, Monday through Friday, 90 minutes a day. You have a live English class with an English instructor for an intensive English lesson. And I have been sponsoring this since February 2024, one person per month. And then I've had a few months where I did two. So we have over 12 people at this point, I think 10 people, I'm not sure, that have received this scholarship. And the recipient from March 2024, the second recipient, her name is Daniela, and she is in the middle there in the jeans jacket. And she is now far enough along in the E4CC program that she is able to apply for jobs in the English speaking call center industry. So that is the goal of the program, to get people jobs, because those jobs are higher paying than the national average, significantly higher, like roughly double than the national average in terms of income. So it's a good job. It is a tough job. It is a very difficult job, long hours, hard work, but very intense, English only, constantly speaking English all day long. So it's a great way to force yourself to learn English in El Salvador. And on the left there, that is Edgar. And he was the first recipient of the E4CC English Academy Scholarship in Berlin. And he is actually still going to university, and he is studying accounting. Essentially, it's like public accounting, or essentially like government audit. It's a different type of accounting that I'm not familiar with. We don't really have that type of education in the US, but I believe it is more audit related from a government audit perspective, is my impression, or a compliance, like I guess an audit firm perspective. So he is still at university and taking English, and he's doing very well. So that was a great update from Daniela, that she is ready to start interviewing for jobs. So also, I discovered they don't actually notify you, which is kind of strange. You think they would notify you and say congratulations, but I was looking to book another flight to El Salvador to deliver some laptops back to the crew. And I learned that I am now a Life Miles Gold status something with Avianca. So I've had enough rides on the Avianca, Latin American Avianca bus down to El Salvador, that I am now a gold something member, which gives me benefits that I can only use a couple of them. But yeah, that's about as fancy as I've ever had in the travel industry. So cheers. And any Q&A. That's my cat. He's kind of a brat. He's a rescued alley cat, feral off the street, and he does not know how good of a life he has it. But I think he likes me. He just won't admit it. So anyway, that was my week. I hope you have a good week. Hope you learned something, and que tengas un buen fin de semana. I think that's right. The Berlin team will correct me if I got that wrong. Anyway, have a good weekend. Hope you're doing well. Go learn something. Go learn some Business Central. Go find some obscure feature, bug, or neglected feature. Yeah. Have a good weekend. Adios.